Well, it's just been announced a new highway code in the UK, and this new highway code is a big change because what it does is it focuses more on vulnerable users, and this is probably moving a little bit more towards some of the laws that are in the continental environment in the northern parts of Europe. So let's have a look at this new law and see how it could probably benefit us cyclists. Now, law is a bit of a strange thing, the way it works in the Western world. And what we normally have is acts, and then underneath the acts we have guidelines and codes, and even down to even businesses that have policies that need to sit under those regulations, guidelines, codes, and the act. Now, in the instance of this new law, it's kind of a little bit strange how it's being implemented. And what they're saying is that there's not any specific laws that have been put out there that say, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that, because most of the laws they're saying are already there. But what this does, it gives an intent, which is like what the act is supposed to be for. It's like in safety, they say a business needs to provide a safe working environment, and the employer needs to abide by those rules and report anything that's safe. Now that's pretty general. You go, well, what does that mean? What do I have to report, and what does the employer have to do? But where that is locked in is to what a reasonable person would do in that situation, or a reasonable business. So if a normal person would report that sort of incident, it could be shown in court that would report that sort of incident, then you're expected to report it. And an employer, if they were to say had to provide harnesses when working at heights, everyone else was doing it, then they would have to provide harnesses because it's considered that other people, other businesses are doing, so therefore it's reasonable. So how does that apply to a cyclist who like to ride our bikes, and you know, we feel a little bit unsafe when we're riding because cars are much bigger and can do a lot more damage, and trucks and so forth. And this is how the law has been set out. Basically what it is the vehicle that can do the most damage then needs to take the most responsibility. On the idea of this new law is really good, because what it's doing is it's saying, hey guys, if you drive a car, you need to watch out for cyclists and pedestrians because they are vulnerable road users. And if you knock a cyclist over or run over a pedestrian, you can't just say, oh, he ran out from the curb, or I didn't see him, and all that. And in Australia currently, that kind of is a argument that's taken into account. If you say, oh, you know, I'm really sorry, I didn't see the cyclist. It's amazing how just saying that can either reduce the fine or reduce your responsibility and even make it go away. And it can even be quite hard to prove even on insurance claims, even if there's not been injury, there's just been damage to your bicycle and so forth. So using that terminology, oh, sorry mate, I didn't see you, it's almost like as if it's okay that I hit you because I didn't mean it. Well, this new law addresses that. It puts more responsibility on people who are driving bigger vehicles, which I think is a really good law. And the reason why I think it's a good law, we do have cyclists that do the wrong thing, we have drivers that do the wrong thing, we have pedestrians that do the wrong thing. But the way that the law is looking at this is if you do the wrong thing as a cyclist or a wrong thing as a pedestrian, your impact on others is fairly minimal. Whilst if you do the wrong thing in a vehicle or a truck, then the outcome of that can be quite severe, because the vehicle that you're in control of can do a hell of a lot more damage to property and to human life. So what they're doing is they're shifting the responsibility to the people that can do the most damage. So what this therefore does, it then gives us, the cyclists, a kind of a legal bubble that we're riding in, because if there's an incident, it's automatically going to fall on the person who had the biggest vehicle. Now, that also applies to us cyclists. If we hit a pedestrian, we're the bigger vehicle, so then we should have taken more care. So there is some responsibility on us, but because we're at the bottom of the food chain, it doesn't really have so much of an effect. We just need to be careful if we hit a pedestrian, because pedestrians right at the bottom of the food chain and are the most vulnerable. But when something goes to court, it's not just about the specifics in the actual code. What it comes down to is you were driving the bigger vehicle, and would it have been reasonable for you to take due care as other drivers would have? And if that's yes, then you're going to be to blame. And I think this is a really great outcome, and I'd like to see these sorts of things adopted in Australia as well, because we have very much a attitude in Australia that roads are for drivers and bicycles should be on the road, and if you get hit, well, you shouldn't be on the road, it's your fault. And that type of mentality, or that culture, needs to change, and it does take significant time to change those sorts of cultures in a country which is, we're very much like America when it comes to motor vehicles. Motor vehicles are considered more than just something to get you around. There's kind of this love for vehicles, and our houses are designed around having garages, and at least 2 parking garages. And cars are considered a really important thing in Australia, as they are in America. And changing that culture is going to be significant. But I think laws like this do start to make people think about what they're doing and go, hang on a sec, if I just cut in front of a cyclist and I'll clean him up, then maybe I'm going to get into more trouble than I did before. And I think that's a really good thing. So in conclusion, there's been quite a few articles that have been written about this new law, and one of the things that they've said is it hasn't been rolled out, people haven't been informed about the new law, and it's going to come in on January the 31st, and people don't know what this new law means. And that's a good point. And I will actually say that when governments do change laws, especially when it comes to road traffic codes, they pretty poor. What they do is they give a kind of general idea about the law. They say, oh, now you're going to have to take more care when passing cyclists. Now, people can interpret that comment in many different ways, and this is how they kind of portray the law, instead of actually giving them the law and what they could get a ticket over. Because quite often people have this attitude like, oh, if I'm on my phone and I'll take a phone call or I'm texting, I can get a ticket. But that's actually not how the law reads. The law reads if you're using an electronic device. And that means even if you pick it up to look at the time. In Australia here, just holding that device in your hand and looking at the time is a breach of the law. So you can't actually use any electronic device, even if it's an iPad, a phone, or whatever. If it's going to impact on your driving, and when it could take your attention away from your driving and it's an electronic device, then you can be fined. So I think the way that they portray these laws needs to be done a bit better. And I think with this in the UK, yeah, I agree with them. They probably should have rolled it out significantly, I would probably say, for a 6-month period prior to that law taking action on the date it's supposed to, whilst now they're starting the campaign after the law is in place. And I think that that is unreasonable, because it's not about getting a fine. Someone's life could be lost in that period between it comes into place and the advertising is out there informing people, but people didn't know about it, and there was a situation where someone was killed, either pedestrian or cyclist or so forth. So I think that people have a genuine argument there. But as far as the protecting cyclists, I think that drivers have a bit of an attitude that, hey, look, we're on the road, and, cyclists are going to take advantage of these laws. Well, at the end of the day, what can a cyclist do to a car? I mean, even if a cyclist rams his bike straight into the side of a car, the worst he's going to do is scratch the paint and maybe put like a little bit of a dent into it. And this is where I think drivers haven't got a realistic view. They see it as and allowed. What are we allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do? And cyclists are a pain because they get in the way and they stop me, allowing me to turn left when I want to, or turn right where I want to, or holding me up in traffic. And that's the way they see it. It's more about an inconvenience to them rather than a safety mentality that they have. And that's what we need to change. And even if it does lean more towards the cyclists, because they are more vulnerable to being injured and killed, I think that that's a good outcome. Well, guys, leave your comments down below, because I know a lot of cyclists have quite strong views on safety. Do you think that this is a really good move that they've done in the UK? And would you like to see these similar sort of rules that they have in Northern Europe, and now the UK is partially adopting them, where the vehicle with the bigger mass is automatically takes the blame until they can prove otherwise? And do you think this is a way we should be moving, and also to encourage more people on the bicycles and also walking, because we're moving into a lower, greener impact on the planet as we move towards 2050. Okay, guys, that's where I'm going to leave it, and I'll see you next vid. Cheers.